Unbroken, healing through storytelling.
Hello and welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeleine Black, where I am meeting people that I have met on my own journey, people that have been through tough times but are now making a difference for other people. And today I'm interviewing two amazing people that I have met over in the Twitter world, so it's nice to meet them in real life. And their story is very close to my heart. Anybody who knows my story knows I'm an activist against sexual violence, and they also both speak out and share their story. So today I'm interviewing Steve Waters and Gary Cliffe. Let me tell you a little bit about them before we start our interview. Steve is an ex-professional footballer. He is director of Offside Trust, football survivor, a business owner, and a family man. And Gary Cliffe, he was a youth footballer for Manchester City. He's also a survivor of Barry Bennell. And in 2018, along with 12 other survivors, Barry Bennell was found guilty of numerous counts of sexual abuse of children. He helped to secure 8 counts of serious abuse convictions against Barry Bennell. Currently a senior ambassador to the Offside Trust, advisor to the FA Survivor and Safeguarding Group, and he's now a detective constable, and he's been in service with Staffordshire Police for 20 years, and his current role is in child protection and exploitation team. So welcome to the show, Gary and Steve. The very first question that I always ask all of my guests, because we are called Unbroken, is what does that word unbroken mean to you? So maybe we could go to Gary first, if you like.
Yes, hi Madeleine. Great to finally sort of meet you, so to speak, in virtual
Likewise.
world. Yes, unbroken. To me, that word alone means a spirit and a strength. And something that I always say is that we're still standing. I say it to Steve and anyone that will listen, basically, that having gone through what we've gone through, we're still here, we're still standing, and we're unbroken. And that's what it means to me.
I love that word, the spirit of you. Every week I ask a guest, that question. Everyone comes up with a different answer, but I haven't heard anyone reply, it's my spirit. So that's a really lovely definition.
Thank you.
And Steve, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
Well, basically, showing a show of resilience, as far as I'm concerned, that despite going through all these bad times and bad experiences, that we can still function and still carry on in a positive manner. None of us asked for what happened to us, to happen to myself and you and Gary, but we're here now, and we're trying to trying to make a positive difference in the world, and that's what we're trying to do.
You're not trying to do that. You are doing that. So there's no you can't try. You either do it or you don't. And believe me, I have followed you both on Twitter for a long time. You are making the difference. So would it be okay if we could go back and you could maybe just tell us briefly what happened to you? Because Barry Bennell, the man that abused you both, was a football coach, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. I was unfortunate. The fact that I come from Plymouth, which was a very long way away, spent my young years from the age of 12, 13, 14 upwards at his cottage in Buxton in Derbyshire. And that's where all the abuse happened, really. But
and what age were you when it started, Steve?
As far as I can remember, around 12, 13. Obviously, I don't know the exact time. I've only got certain recollections, but obviously, it's a very young age, and it should never have happened, and it's so upsetting knowing there were so many of us, and obviously, it's vitally important that people still come forward now, because we know there's other victims still out there.
Absolutely. And Gary, could you tell us when you first came across him and when it started with you?
Yeah, Madeleine. So I got scouted by a Manchester City scout, not Barry Bennell. to go to Manchester City. They were putting a team together of local lads, and within about 6 months, the team was handed over to Barry Bennell. And within a couple of weeks, we got the call of he wanted to sort of do the meet and greet, which meant you staying overnight. So 2 boys went every week. I went with another boy, and the abuse started on the very first occasion that we went to bed. Basically, there was no sort of messing about with him. It was straight in, and it's only now as an adult you can see that he was testing you out to see what he could get away with, and it went from there. But we'll probably get onto it later. But we just simply didn't have the words to say anything, and it was silenced.
Yeah. I was also very young. I was 13 when I was gang raped, and I didn't have the vocabulary to name it for what it was, you know, and it was easier for me, and I don't know if it's the same with you both, just to push it far, far from my head. I don't even know if it was a conscious decision, just something my body did. Just don't speak about it, push it out of your head.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, it didn't really know what was going on, because it never had the sexual experience before. We didn't know, is it affection? Is this what you've got to do? No other boys were saying anything. None of the parents raised concerns. None of the officials at the club raised concerns. So that, you know, you're a little speck on the landscape. You're not going to put your head above the parapet to speak up about something you don't really know what's going on. So you're kind of trapped.
And you have this dream to be a footballer, and here's this coach, I guess, was making you promises that he could turn you into a footballer.
Yes, he could. He had, his house was unbelievable. He had a room full of football kit and boots, and he had a pet monkey, leopards, pool table. You know, it was something kids dreamed of, and you could basically just go into a kit room and choose any equipment that you wanted, which back then was a Lacoste top was, you know, you were the bee's knees. So, you know, it was like it was just full of surprises there all the time. And, you know, he used to, you know, sweet talk you and bribe you, you know, it just kept you on tenterhooks all the time, obviously threatening you with your football career constantly. So, you know, he was an absolute expert of grooming beyond belief, really, when you think back now.
Well, it's total manipulation, because on the one hand, he's making it so exciting and full of fun and doing all these things you're not allowed to do everywhere, but he's obviously abusing his position, and he has control and power over you as well.
He does, yes. Yeah, he was certainly good at that, because, you know, he used to suck in all the parents, all the people, the football clubs. The only time any alarms ever raised, really, in my recollection, is when we used to play against other football teams. That's my only recollection of, you know. But there used to be footballers going missing all the time. Obviously, he must have tried something with them. It didn't work. You know, they might have put up a fight, and next thing they disappear from the football club. You know, it's just to make excuses saying they, you know, stole something from the dressing room. So that kind of put you off as well. You know, if you didn't do what he said, you would disappear from that football club. So he's very good at manipulating different guys and playing tricks with your mind.
Yeah, and I believe you got to about 17, didn't you? And you had to stop as a footballer for a while because you developed arthritis.
Yes, it didn't stop me playing. It just halted my career. But at that time, anyway, my head was all over the place. I was doing really well with the first team. You know, there was talks about me going to Liverpool. You know, I was right on the very verge of making my dream move to Liverpool. And obviously, yeah, this incomplete writer syndrome kicked in, and that curtailed my career. But I think the damage had already been done, because I was at that age then where I was starting to realise what sex was, and I knew something was severely wrong. And that's when.
Yes, sorry, I also read that the type of arthritis, they said it could come from being sexually transmitted.
Yes, it's a very rare blood disorder that I've got. All the experts looked into it, and all that's been dismissed. But I've always got that seed of doubt now in my head that, you know, maybe something did happen, and that obviously could tear my career when I was absolutely flying. So that's very frustrating, knowing that something that shouldn't have never happened anyway. It was just a double and triple whammy with this incomplete writer syndrome, you know, which is, you know, sexually transmitted, you know, disease. Because I hardly ever had any partners, you know, female partners back then anyway. So it is an hard one to deal with, that.
Gary, can you talk about the impact that it had on you?
Yeah, the impact on me was horrific, from such a tender age, from the age of 11. Totally shaped me as a child. My schoolwork suffered. I used to miss school a lot because I'd be staying overnight at his house. Even on a Monday, I'd be off school, come up with some excuse. Deep shame and regrets and embarrassment comes with it from an early age, which stays with you for many, many, many years, and I still get it now. Anxiety, I've been on medication for 30 odd years. The mental health side of it's immense. You know, it can't be overstated, and it'll stay with us. But we learn to live with it, and we survive, don't we? It's what we are. And we use medication to assist and counselling, and also I've heard you say, Madeline, on numerous occasions, speaking up unburdens you, and that is how I feel. And I've heard Steve say it a load. It was like a ton of bricks coming off Steve's back, and it is so true. And the guilt and shame is not ours to carry. And I've heard you say that, Madeline, as well. And it's spot on. And this is what I want other lads to know, that they don't have to hide away and be ashamed and be suffering mental health. They can come out of it by speaking up. Not everyone wants to, and each to their own, of course, but that's what we're hoping to achieve with something here.
Absolutely. And Steve, could you tell us a little bit about how it's affected you? What was the impact?
Initially, it kicked me in the other way. I was obsessed with training. That was the only way I could kind of cook. I went to Lilleshall, which is the FA School of Excellence in Shropshire, and the only way I could deal with that was training beyond belief. I can remember my boss, Mike Kelly, telling me they banned me from training in the end, but that was my escape. And you know, I've gone down that horrible road of drugs, drinking, womanizing, the whole lot, you know, believe me. And this has gone all the way through until, honestly says, you know, when 2016, when it finally came out and told the world. And, you know, that's been life-changing. You know, I couldn't look people in the eyes because it was always that, you know, I was paranoid about looking at people. I felt ashamed of myself. My body language was always really, really poor. But now, you know, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of every single survivor that comes forward and speaks out, because that is the first step forwards and onwards and upwards with the rest of your life. So you need to speak out. You know, it does make a huge difference.
That shame is so disabling, isn't it? Because it lies to us, really, I think, the shame.
Yes, it does. I had huge troubles in the dressing rooms and being around other men all the time, because I was thinking, am I gay? You know, I just felt so uncomfortable in these situations and scenarios, even till, you know, till I was a manager as well. I felt uncomfortable then, but you know, it's something you shouldn't have to feel. And like Gary said, you know, no more. You know, we got to get over it now, and only one person can make a difference in your life now, and that's yourself. And so we've got to, you know, we've got to onwards and upwards.
So it was Andy Woodward, wasn't it, who first spoke out in 2016? You were the defender of Crewe,
Yes.
He went public, and that was really when other victims got in contact with the police. Gary, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my story is slightly different because I came forward in 1994. The police came to me because when they started an investigation into Bennell, first of all the lads were saying, you've got to see Gary Cliffe, because I was there all the time. And they came to me and I told them everything, but I didn't have the strength then as a young man to make a formal complaint. It was only in 2015, 18 months before it exploded, I picked the phone up and told Cheshire I want to make a formal complaint. So unbeknownst to Steve, Woody and Chris at the time, I'd already come forward. And then they came forward and it exploded massively, as we know.
And did nothing come from when you went forward 18 months before?
No, I kept my anonymity.
Okay.
I kept my anonymity, you see, and it was just with the police investigation. But with Steve and Woody et al. Breaking their anonymity, obviously it was out there public, and little did they know I was already in the background with the case, so to speak. It's only after he got convicted that I broke my anonymity. And but I've met up with Woody and Steve, and we got massive strength from each other, and getting reacquainted. And I love Steve to death, and we get on so well, and we just give each other so much strength.
Brilliant. And Steve, were you aware that Andy was speaking out, or was it him speaking out that helped you to find your voice? Yeah,
believe it or not, one of my best friends sent me an article on a Sunday of Andy's brave story in the newspaper, and I think I had a nervous breakdown for 2 or 3 days. I couldn't come at the house. At the end of that, for some reason, I phoned Daniel Taylor directly at the Guardian and said, "Listen, this happened to me. Andy Woodward's stories are exactly the same as mine to a certain level, but bar 1 or 2 things, obviously. But it was like I've been hit by an exit missile. Everything come rushing back, and I'll always be forever grateful to Andy for actually putting his head on the blocking shot, because for him to this could have gone the other way. That when we went on to Victoria Derbyshire, for example, we put our vulnerability on the line there because
absolutely. And there was
it could have gone the other way. But
who was with you on the show?
It was Andy Woodward, Chris Unsworth, Jay Dunford, and myself. Yeah. And obviously, we weren't aware that Gary had bravely already come forward, like you said just now. But there was a huge outpour after that, and I'm sure it's over 1,000 people have come forward now. But
1,000 I can remember people abused by the same man.
Not by the same man,
but within football.
They were heading that way, figures wise, yes.
And these are just the ones that have spoken up, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Andy's still struggling now. He's the one person I'm personally thankful for. I still be living the pathetic little life I was living. I'll always be grateful to Andy no matter what. Sorry, but I will be.
Well, I think there is safety in numbers, isn't it? We do support each other, male or female. If we've been there, then we get it. And Twitter has its bad points, but it has its really, really good points as well. And there is an army of survivors out there, really, isn't there? Sadly.
Yeah, there is. The thing is, like Andy Woodward was saying, and obviously Gary knew as well, we were there in and around at the time when it was all going on. So we knew there was other survivors looking back, and obviously every single person I've virtually got a memory of, something happened to them or they were close to it. So we knew going on that show that there was going to be an outcry and an outpour of people, football survivors coming forwards, and the reaction from it was absolutely unbelievable.
What has the
life-changing for a lot of us.
I did watch the show and it was very powerful, but what was the personal impact for you speaking out publicly like that on TV?
God, it's like I said just now, absolutely life changing. I don't think I've had one negative remark of anybody since then. You know, it's been empowering, kind of thrown into the deep end, because obviously this was a unique scenario. You know, we had the prospect of a criminal trial coming up, you know, civil claims, and you know, the list is endless. We didn't realise that the journey ahead, we were unprepared for it. So, you know, obviously the fact that like now we're in total control of what's going on in and around us, but then we're kind of thrown into the deep end, because, you know, it was so empowering. It was unbelievable. It was all good, all good.
And Gary, can we come to you, because you said that you weren't, you were anonymous for a long time, but you broke out of that. How did it feel to you to put your face behind your story?
Yeah, I kept my anonymity because having worked and still work in the justice services arena, so to speak, I was sort of aware of what breaking the anonymity could mean when there was an impending trial. And indeed, a lot of the questions from the defence QC were along the lines of, you've all colluded, you've all got together, the typical mudslinging, because she could not go at the evidence because the evidence was solid. So obviously you go at mudslinging, which makes my blood boil and needs to be tackled. But yes, so I finally broke my anonymity because I was empowered by the lads that had come forward. And I thought, yeah, I want to stand with them lads. They're so brave. They've done a wonderful thing. And why should we feel how we feel? It's not our guilt and shame to feel anymore. And you sort of feel a bit angry and come on, let's do it. And we did. And the greatest thing that I feel is when lads come up to us or ring us and say, oh, thanks for speaking up. You know, I'm going to keep my anonymity, but you've empowered me to pick the phone up or share it and break that horrible stigma that follows you in your pit of your stomach. So that's what I'm most proud of. And then obviously I've done numerous things with Steve on Victoria Derbyshire, other things, and Daniel Taylor's been a massive influence. And all the media and yourself are absolutely phenomenal, the support, and we get strength in numbers to try and smash this as best we can.
And it's the ripple effect, really, isn't it? So you, because you're speaking out and showing your face, you're helping other people. And when they finally find their voice and start healing, they will go on to help other people. So it's this massive ripple effect.
Yeah, and also letting them offenders sort of know that you're going to get your day. You know, non-recent abuse, yeah, you know, it could take us 20, 30 years, but we're coming for you. Just to sow that seed in their head that you can't get away with it forever.
And Steve, can you tell us about the Offside Trust? Because that really came about after you were on the Victoria Derbyshire show, didn't it?
Yes, basically we're an organization run by for survivors. You know, we're proud to say that we've had over 150 survivors, you know, confide in us for the very first time. And obviously that, you know, the first time you actually tell somebody is vitally important. And, you know, we send them to sporting chants, you know, any ex-footballers are sent there, offered the routes of counselling and all that sort of stuff. But the main thing that we are proud of really is the fact that I think there's been over a dozen football coaches now that have been successfully convicted. One took the easy way out and killed himself on his way to court. So that was, you know, that yeah, there were, I can't remember how many victims were involved in that trial, but we had to pick up the debris from all that sort of stuff. But you know, the world's a safer place now because obviously with the Offside Trust, we raised the awareness 100-fold, and the fact that, you know, there are predators and manipulators in sport, especially football, and you know, we with the Offside Trust now we've raised the awareness and made football especially a safer place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Gary, can you tell us about the convictions of Barry Bennell? Because this isn't just the first time that he's been in prison, is it?
No, it's the last trial was in October, which was the 5th time he's been to court and been convicted and gone to jail.
Because he was convicted in America as well, wasn't he?
Yes, for the very, very first time. It was when he took a team to America, and it was American Mother, where he was staying with boys who put the flag up and raised concerns, and it went from there. Thankfully, he's not been in football since because of that. But it's something that's close to my heart, that there's over 100 lads have come forward just for Bennell. This is fact. And have been told thanks, but no thanks. It's too big. He's been convicted. It's not in the public interest, and that is the end. That was the last trial in October. There was 2 lads, and like I said, there's over 100 waiting. Who've picked that phone up, which is so hard to do, and to be told by the CPS and the police it is too big and he won't get. It's not in the public interest. It's just not acceptable.
It doesn't make sense. It's too big, which means clearly there's loads of evidence. There's loads of survivors.
It's something I'm passionate about, and I've spoke to the Victims Commissioner for the UK about to raise it. For me, if the evidence is there, if there's 100, 200 lads, if the evidence is there, that should be put to him. And it's not about the sentence. It's about Madeleine Black being recognised and giving a dig to his ribs, so to speak, that, you got a conviction for me. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And that seems to be dramatically missed in all this.
But he was convicted again, wasn't he, in October in 2020?
Yes, he was. Yeah, me and Steve were there in court to see him. So we were supporting the lads. We got, it was wonderful, and they loved us going, just to be there and support even during COVID. And obviously he got convicted without trial this time. He didn't put him through the trial, fortunately. So he's going to be locked up for a very long time. But like I say, the rest of the lads that aren't going to get justice, simply not acceptable.
But he won't be out now for a very long time, hopefully.
No, at least. Well, they said I think 33 years, but after 15 years, he's eligible for parole. So we'll see.
Steve, how did it feel to be supporting people, at this trial and to hear about the conviction?
Sorry, I lost you there, Madeleine. What you say then?
How did it feel to be at the trial in October, to be supporting people and to hear of his conviction?
Obviously, first and foremost, the 2 guys, the fact they didn't have to go through the rigmarole of a trial like he made us go through, a huge relief for them. And obviously, from a personal point of view and a collective point of view, the final closure that Bennell is going to be in jail now, and hopefully rots and dies in jail. But like Gary said just now, there's still disappointment and a feel of injustice for all the the other guys who are never going to get their final bit of closure, really, with the guilty conviction. So, the judicial system needs to change and evolve, maybe a little bit like they do in the US, where with the gymnasts who all come forward with Larry Nassar, they could all kind of mass together.
Yeah, it was very
their own personal bit of justice, really.
It was very powerful to watch the judge allow the gymnasts to speak their truth, wasn't it? To hear them say how it impacted on their life, even though he was, already convicted. It was very powerful to watch that case.
It was very refreshing, empowering, and surely it's got to change in this country at some sort of stage, because we at the Offside Trust and personally we were encouraging people to come forward for what now, really, when they know they're not going to kind of get their little bit of guilty verdict. It must be a little bit demoralizing, but the way we dress it up, our each guilty convictions weren't just for us, they were for all of us.
But I believe it wasn't just the court system that is no good. You also felt let down by your football team, didn't you? By Crewe not supporting you, or even kind of victim blaming you, Steve.
Yes, yeah, very disappointing. Very disappointed even to this day now, really. I've had no apologies. I've had no contact at all other than a handful of disgruntled supporters. We want to rectify that. We want to put this to bed now, and I'm willing to reach out to that football club and let's put it all behind us, and we'll get some answers soon with this FA independent inquiry coming out soon. Hopefully there could be some results with that. I highly doubt it, but it's my currencies with that football club are over now. They've had their opportunity to apologise, and nothing's really happened.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about the Sheldon report that's coming up, this inquiry?
Gary, do you want to?
Yeah, so due to the avalanche of reports back in 2016, the FA decided we've got to look at this and try and do a bit of fact finding of what's gone on and if there's culpability. And they've commissioned Clive Sheldon QC and his team to do the national picture, not just Bennell, Bennell being the most prolific, but the whole picture that was unearthed of coaches in football from the 70s to the 90s to try and ascertain who knew what, where, when, and also what we're very interested in is any recommendations. So it's imminent. We've all contributed to it, and it's been quite harrowing, and we've all given statements, and I'm sure he'll do a very, very thorough job. It's taken long enough. And we may get some answers, we may not, but me and Steve will be scrutinising that report in depth. It's going to be, I'm on the FA Survivor panel as well, so I'll be scrutinising, and I won't be afraid to call it out if it's a whitewash, so to speak.
I don't doubt that at all, but let's hope there are some serious changes that are made within football or all sports to protect anyone coming through football. But just before we finish up, I'd just like to ask you both, maybe we'll start with Steve, what advice would you give to anyone that's listening right now that's maybe experienced something similar to yourself? What really helped you to get to where you're at now?
Being honest with yourself, having a small select, reliable friends, close family. You need to, you can't deal with this on your own. I try to take on the burden of, listening and guiding survivors through all this sort of stuff, and it's just too much. You need to pan it off to the experts, but anybody out there is suffering in silence, especially they've got to speak out. Get this predator. They might go on and do this abuse other people, so you need to put a stop to it, first and foremost. But life goes on, and we've got to turn a massive negative into a huge positive. Absolutely. So got to speak out.
And you, Gary, what advice would you give to anyone that's listening right now?
I would say, Madeline, to anyone that's gone through similar, do not carry this hurt any longer. Take advice from trusted family, friends, professionals, and have no regrets. Do not have any regrets, because you don't want to be sitting when you're in your elderly time thinking, I wish I'd have said something, because the hurt is not yours to carry.
Absolutely, and I think that is such a powerful statement to end our interview today. The hurt is not yours to carry. And I just really want to heartfelt thanks to you both, because you can see, even though you do share your story, it's not so easy. There's a long way to go to healing, really, isn't there? But you're still putting yourselves out there. You've got this organisation, and you're making a difference to other survivors. So I'm really grateful that you took time out today, and thank you so much for coming on Unbroken, the podcast.
Thank you, Madeline.
Unbroken, healing through storytelling.